Hey everybody, Joe Pregnenolone here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about stress and hormones and how, some of the ways that stress can affect your overall health. So I'm going to jump right in. The first thing I want to do is just explain really quickly just sort of this pathway of your steroidal hormones. It starts off with pregnenolone, which is sort of the granddaddy hormone and the precursor to all of your other steroidal hormones. First off, one of the interesting things about pregnenolone is that it requires a vital essential nutrient, and that nutrient is cholesterol. So just another example of why cholesterol really isn't this demon substance in the body that we've been told over the past 50 or 60 years, but that's probably an entirely different video. So pregnenolone comes down and makes DHEA, which is the precursor for all of your sex hormones, your androgens, testosterone, estrogens, and things like that. And then it comes over and it makes progesterone, and progesterone goes into making cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It's also our waking hormone. It's the hormone that's most active first thing in the morning, and it wakes us up and then diminishes throughout the day and into the evening, and so we can go to sleep. Okay, so what do you think happens when we throw some stress into the situation? First of all, let me talk about what I mean by stress. For now, we're going to talk about maybe like an acute short-term stress, like you've almost get into a car accident and you have to make some really quick decisions to try and avoid getting into an accident, or you're being chased by a wild boar or something. I think you'd be lucky, you'd turn around, probably kill the boar, make some bacon, and call it a day. But nevertheless, that's an acute short-term stressor, and your body deals with that pretty well. We've adapted to deal with that sort of stress really well. Cortisol is going to spike, and some of the things that cortisol is going to do is going to mobilize energy, it's going to divert energy, and it's going to store energy. Okay, so how does it mobilize energy? It's going to take amino acids from your muscle and from bone tissue, and it's going to convert that into glucose to raise your blood sugar so it can be used for immediate energy. It's going to divert energy. In a situation where it's do or die, it's fight or flight situation, your body's not concerned with digesting breakfast, it's not concerned with fighting off some virus, it's certainly not concerned with reproduction. It wants to survive right then and there. It has to survive. So it's going to divert energy from your digestive system, it's going to divert energy from your immune system, and it's going to divert energy from hormones, because it wants to just put all the energy into surviving right then and there in that moment. One of the other stresses that we've adapted to is starvation or lack of food. And so if it senses some sort of stress, one of the things it wants to do is store energy, in other words, store fat. What else is it going to do? It wants to conserve energy, and so it's going to suppress thyroid function and suppress your metabolism so you don't burn through energy so quickly. So these are the things that it's going to do in order to try and survive whatever stressor it's experiencing in that moment. So think about this as sort of an example. What do people typically do when they try to lose weight? The traditional thought is you exercise more and you eat less. And so people exercise more, they'll run on a treadmill for hours a day, and they'll eat significantly less. What kind of signal do you think that sends to our body? It's a stress signal. It's saying food is scarce because our body doesn't know that there's a McDonald's and a fast food and grocery stores on every single corner. It's still sort of wired for 10, 20, a million years ago. And so if you significantly reduce your calorie intake, your body thinks it's starving, and so it's going to go through this process of turning muscle into glucose for energy. It's going to store fat, and it's going to slow down your metabolism. Same thing if you're running on a treadmill for an hour, it thinks you're running from something, so it's going to go through the same process. It's a stress. Your body thinks that there's some dire fight or flight situation, and it's going to raise cortisol and do all these things to try to get you to survive that situation. So it's sort of, you're accomplishing the opposite of what you want to accomplish if you're doing a traditional diet, exercise, calories in, calories out type of situation. Okay, so nevertheless, our bodies have become pretty well adapted at dealing with these short-term, sort of acute, punctuated stressors. What haven't we become adapted to? basically how we live today with this low-level anxiety, constant chronic stress. I want to define stress a little bit for you, maybe a little bit differently than how you typically think of stress. When I say stress, people typically think mental, emotional, psychological stress. I hate my job, my boss is an idiot, I get mortgages to pay, taxes to pay, the presidential candidates are both idiots. And those are legitimate stressors and can profoundly affect our health. But I also want you to think about some hidden stressors, some hidden internal stressors that you may or may not know about. And I think they could be worse, particularly if you're not aware of them. So an example of an internal stress would be some sort of an infection, like a viral infection or bacterial infection or a fungal infection, or maybe a food allergy or food sensitivity. And if you're not aware of that, obviously that's going to just continue on and on and on, unchecked, and creating this low-level chronic stress, which is worse than that acute stress of being chased by something, or that fight or flight stress. Because the body doesn't differentiate between that acute stressor and the chronic stress. It's going to respond the same way. But we haven't become too adept at responding to the chronic stress. So what happens when the adrenals are constantly called on to create cortisol, we just can't sustain that level of cortisol production for very long, and our adrenals start to get burned out. But one of the things it's going to do in order to try and keep up with the demand for cortisol is something called a pregnenolone steal. So what's going to happen is the adrenal glands are going to start stealing from pregnenolone to make cortisol. So what do you think is going to happen if we're constantly stealing pregnenolone to make cortisol? Well, our DHA is going to go down. And what do you think happens if our DHEA goes down? Well, all of these other sex hormones are going to suffer because of that. One of the most important things that you can do for your health is take steps to manage stress. I don't think we can completely eliminate stress, but there are things that we can do to manage stress. Just have a smart exercise routine. Don't run on a treadmill for an hour. That's going to make things worse. Go for a hike. Go for a hike in the woods. Get reconnected with nature. Try not to react to stupid things like being cut off in traffic. I talk about this a little bit in the book, where there's a space between when something happens and when you react to it. And once you become aware of that space, you can control your response to it. So using that traffic scenario as an example, someone cuts you off in traffic, there is a tiny moment where you can just say, I hope that guy's all right, and hope he's not in a rush, and hope there's not an emergency, and just sort of smile it and laugh it off. Or you can respond by flipping the guy the bird and getting pissed off and tailgating and cursing, which is going to generate this massive stress response. So which would you choose? Breathing exercises, yoga, things like that. All of these things can help manage stress, and I think it's one of the most important things that you can do for your health. I want to give you another example, and I'm actually going to do a whole other video on this, but I'm going to give you a little teaser right now. One of the things that I'm seeing, particularly in guys, and I'm not talking about 60, 70, 80-year-old guys, I'm talking about 30s, 40s. This is like an epidemic, where you're seeing elevated LDL cholesterol, suppressed DHEA, suppressed testosterone, elevated estrogens, dysregulated cortisol function, and slightly suppressed thyroid function. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about how all of those things I just mentioned are intricately connected, and why it's a really bad idea to just treat one thing, just treat lab results, or just treat a symptom, rather than look at the whole body holistically and treating the whole body holistically to really get to the root cause of the problem. So, in other words, a traditional medical practitioner would probably just prescribe a statin drug to lower cholesterol, which is going to make this other situation much worse. If they think outside of the box a little bit, they may prescribe like a bioidentical testosterone cream. That's ultimately going to make things worse. And so in the next video, I'll explain a little bit more about that stuff. So that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to helping you achieve your greatest health.